Well, welcome back to these Saturday seminars as part of THIS21. As you can see, the other Paul has trusted me with emceeing this one, and I'm here with my wife Sue. So I hope you've enjoyed the first two, and this one is going to be a much more relaxed approach rather than me just talking out of camera. So I'm here with my wife of a few years, Sue.
A few years, yes, just a few.
It's 42, actually, okay. In actual fact. We were very, very young when we got married, though. We were extremely young. So, well, we got the opportunity of doing this together, and I thought the best thing was for me to ask Sue a few questions. And we jumped on one verse. We thought we'd just go for one really well-known verse and unpack it a little bit and just see if we could get under Sue's skin and find out what she's been thinking during this unusual season. So the verse, you know it well, Proverbs chapter 3 and verse 5. Are you reading it or me?
Yeah, I'll read it. In actual fact, it is 5 and 6.
Okay.
But, you know. So I'm going to read it from my physical Bible rather than just recite it. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make paths straight.
So it's really well known, but actually when you start looking at it, it's really appropriate for coming out of this season, isn't it? So we thought we'd just look at it in three ways, and obviously we've been together. Actually, we've been together, this is true. This is the most we have been together in our entire married life. You know, slept in the same bed every night for the last however many months because I've always travelled or done nights. So we really have been together.
I know that the end of the whole year of pandemic, I said to Paul, gosh, we've actually spent 365 days together consistently because you say you're a nurse, a prison governor, pastor, travelling. So that's been an interesting season. So, but it's been good. It's been good. And we were just talking the other day about some of the ways that we felt that God had helped us in this season. So in just a really just simple few ways, because I tend to think simply, Paul tends to think more intellectually brainy.
I thought you'd tell people that I get everything from you.
Well, there is that, but honestly, in this season of doing childcare bubbles and looking after a puppy, I felt like I haven't used my brain as much as I used to. So just getting back into that. And the first thing I wanted to look at here was about what I had to do in this season of trusting. And trusting in God, because it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. I mean, that's your entire being. And a phrase that has been really important to me over the years is, God is either who he says he is or he isn't. And that was something that came up with during some counselling that I had, where I had to make some decisions about facing things and dealing with some things in my life that I had to decide. And very simply, if that was, for example, healing, who does God say he is? He either is healer or he isn't. And it's for me to decide what I feel about that. And so I've had to learn to trust God in a load of different ways, haven't we? In this season, trusting for finances, when all of your income stops, and trusting him in that. Trusting him, for healing with family members and different things that were happening in the pandemic. Now, you see, we came home from America, was it four years ago? Although I really think it's more like 3 because the last year doesn't count. We're not counting that. But God told us to come home, and one of the reasons to come home was for revival in Europe, and our place in that, wasn't it? And one of the things I've thought about is God knew the pandemic was going to happen when he called us home for revival. And so our part in that revival hasn't changed. It's only the pandemic. The circumstances of what we're doing have changed. But the thing that God called us home for hasn't changed. And we don't feel like we've wasted a year, even though we joke about, like, this last year doesn't count. Because we've still been thinking, we've been talking, we've been praying, we've walked and prayed and talked about that for the future. And just because we're not seeing at the moment what God called us home for, particularly this last year, it doesn't mean that he isn't moving. And so in this season, I've had to choose to trust who he says he is, that he does have a plan for us post-pandemic. And I think for probably everybody watching, trusting God during this pandemic and coming out of it and thinking, all of the words he had for me, he hasn't forgotten them. And we may feel like they've been put on hold, but God's still been moving. It's just we may not have seen it. And so trusting him in this season has been a really important thing for me.
And just to link it in with this,
oh yes,
God wasn't surprised at what Vashti did.
No.
So the people at the banqueting table could have gone, look what Vashti's done. But actually God wasn't surprised at what Vashti did because he knew where he was going. He's not surprised at the pandemic. It didn't take him by surprise. But the beautiful thing, which I think you're saying, is that this is what separates us from people who don't know God.
Yeah.
This is when the rubber hits the road. We have a faith in God. We trust God. And this separates us from everyone else. And you read verses in the Bible where this is what separated the people of Israel because, and that's this one thing. We can trust him.
Yeah.
And we had, it was more to do with our love, but it actually, it has a context here, forever, for always, no matter what. We had painted on our bed once, didn't we? Which, we didn't, paint it over or anything like that. We just changed beds. So changed continents, actually. But it's the same thing here. Forever, for always, no matter what, we trust God. So trust. So that's the first sort of thing that you got out of this one, well, 2 verses, as you told me it was. Trust in the Lord. And then it's with all your heart. And you have some interpretation about that, what that actually means in terms of...
Yeah, I think for me, it was being true to who I am. Everything in my heart coming out truthfully, not having that pretense of being someone else, and integrity. And I think for a lot of us, social media has become something we've turned to in the pandemic. If you're at home on your own, thinking of friends who spent lots of lonely hours at home, social media has become their place of connecting with others. And we all know recently what that's been like on social media with the virus particularly. Everybody's being very vocal about their opinions, whether it's on the American election, our own election here, there was Brexit thrown in, vaccine debates all over the world, and just really being true to myself and not entering into those arguments on Facebook, making sure that I had my opinion thrown over, and just, I don't know, riding roughshod over different people's thoughts and ideas. So you making
sure that wasn't a priority for you to put that out there?
Yeah, like sometimes we can think things, well, we all can think things that are maybe not the same as other people, but just to throw it out there as though it is the truth when it's our truth. Now, my truth may be different to somebody else's because I may think differently about the vaccine than another close friend. In fact, I do know someone who is absolutely has made a decision about the vaccine which is different to me. Now, can I still be friends with them? Absolutely. They just have a different way of looking at it. And I think there's something that we say to each other, or a comment we've had, is that we judge others by their behaviour, but ourselves by our motives. And so, when we post, even if it's something that can be quite harsh or against someone, if we do that, we know the motive behind it, but then if somebody else posts a similar thing, we're judging them by what they're saying, and our behaviour needs to line up with our motives. I think.
So what you're saying is that if what I do isn't the same as what I say I believe, that's a breakdown in me, which means that I'm not trusting the Lord with all my heart, with all of me.
Yeah.
I'm actually presenting a kind of a broken image, which is, James says, doesn't he? A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Yeah. So really what you're saying is we need to be single-minded, and what we present to the world needs to be the same as what we believe. Yeah,
that's it. And if I found in different times in the pandemic that maybe I'm on social media or something like that, and I'm not feeling the greatest. I remember one day saying to Paul, this thing about the storm and the not being in the same boat together type of thing, like everybody's boat's different. I said there are times in this pandemic when I felt like my boat has lots of holes in it and I'm constantly bailing water out. But when I go on social media or when I'm talking to someone else who is maybe feeling that their boat's got holes in it, I pull on what's in my heart, my whole being, and I bring hope into that. And it's almost like like David did, I encourage myself by telling myself the things. I might put a video of the goodness of God, the song, out on social media to encourage people, but also I've put it on at home so I can encourage myself. So rather than post, hey, I'm in a boat with holes in it, I'm drowning here, I would rather put on the song of the goodness of God, and my friends might know, I wonder if Sue's having a hard day, but for everybody else, I hope that it's bringing hope to them. But that's being true to me by wanting to encourage others and build them up in this time. Because I have you. If I'm having a bad day, I can go to you and say, I don't know what to do. I don't have to go onto social media. Whereas someone who's on their own, has no one else, might go onto social media and say, my boat's got holes in, I don't know what to do.
So what you actually do is you go, you're in a boat with holes in it, but you tell the world, actually, no, I'm doing all right. Not because you're recognising
well,
other
I
people's
see
needs,
it, and I see that other people might have the same feeling, and I'm like, I know what to do right now because of who I am, because of what I have. So I need to put on that worship. I need to go read Psalm 91. I need to do something that raises me up from where I'm at.
You found a song yesterday, didn't you, with a brilliant line in it?
Oh, yes. I think that, whether we get to the end of, in the next 6.5 minutes of what we're going to say, a guy called Brandon Lake from America, a pastor, and he has this amazing song out at the well, he's probably had it for a while, but and there's a line in it that says, "Don't tell me he can't do it." And you can find it on YouTube, and it's so encouraging. We put it on yesterday, and even though we didn't really need encouraging, when we'd listened to it and he starts talking about, I've seen cancer healed, I've seen this, I've seen the other, all these different things, addictions break off. And that line, don't tell me he can't do it, I felt like, yes, don't tell me that God can't do something through this pandemic. Don't tell me that he can't change things for us all.
It's good. It's a really great song. Can't remember the title of it, but you'll find it. And then the other phrase we grabbed hold of, and we've had a couple of situations where we've really realised that the culture we carry is different to the culture around us, is this line that says, in all your ways acknowledge him, which is really a statement of culture. In all your ways acknowledge him is culture. Tell me a little bit about that, because I've watched you observe somebody whose culture is so different to ours, and then you've worked out a way of introducing them without rebuking them to, no, this is our culture, this is the way we see. So
yeah, I think that when you come from one place, and it's not about the church that we were at in America, because we got a whole load of culture from that, but it's kingdom culture. And the church is Kingdom Faith, but it's kingdom culture. It's not a church's culture. And for me, the culture I got, a couple of things was that I found out who I was. I know who I am, and that God is good amongst other cultures. And so when we've been facing things with the different, we belong to a group that we do a little Zoom online. When people have been ill or had something, their go-to thing is, oh no, what are we going to do? And let's try and figure out ways of offering a little bit of advice. Whereas I realize that our culture is, when somebody says, oh gosh, I've got this going on, is to say, let's pray about that. God can heal that. Or here's a testimony to encourage you. And so coming from that glass half full rather than the glass half empty, and realizing that for a lot of people who maybe haven't been around the kind of church cultures that we've belonged to, that isn't their go-to with a problem. Offering a word, the other day, a couple of ladies have got some things going on, and there was a lot of just different helpful things like, well, maybe you could do this, maybe you could do the other. And I was just simply walking to Tesco, thinking about these two ladies, and God just said, tell them I've got this. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I just messaged on the group and said, hey, I was walking thinking, this is what God said, I've got this. And one of the ladies was like, wow, thank you so much. Yes, he does, doesn't he? He really does have this. The next morning, everything in her life that she'd been concerned about changed. It was to do with her daughter. Everything changed. It was like her daughter woke up a different person. And so for her then, she was like, wow, God really did have it, didn't he? And so just simply dropping in a word from God, or just saying, should we pray about this? Or the other week saying to somebody, you know what we found helpful, and that is taking communion. You don't have to wait until church does it. You can take communion. This is what a friend of ours did with communion. And after 30 days, there was this incredible healing in her life. So just things that are really natural to us, that are not natural to other people, just to encourage without saying, well, don't you know, or making them feel less than, is like helping to bring them up by just some simple ways.
Well, we were doing that course, weren't we? And the details don't matter, but we were doing a course, and what we watched happen was people made it a self-help course first, and maybe God will step in afterwards. And when Sue was preparing one of the sessions, it's like, no, turn all the questions round and start with God help, and maybe these are some things we need to do in the process, but it started with God help. And I just remembered the name of the song. It's Too Good to Not Believe is what the song is called.
Oh, yes.
Which would be a really cool place to end, really, because what Brandon's song is all about is, this is everything I've seen. It's too good to not believe. And I think that really, that's how we're viewing this and coming out of this. But I've watched you with that. You do this. It's so core to you. There's those three things that you trust God. I know you did that. You travelled to get your inner healing. Because you trusted God. Yeah. With all your heart, you threw everything in. And changed the entire direction of her family life. Yeah. And then what you have got is this, when you say you've got kingdom culture, it means it really does affect every aspect of your life. And every now and then you'll tell me, remember, this is what we believe. So that was good. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not unto your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him. And the end of it is really good news. He'll direct our paths. So we shouldn't be worried about post-pandemic life, because if we do those first three things, he will direct our paths. So thanks for hanging out with me a little bit more, as if we haven't seen very much of each other. but we still love each other. I said to somebody, if at the end of this year you've still got money in the bank, got a job, you stayed married, you're healthy, you've had a major successful year.
Yes.
So we've had a success. So thanks for being with us. And the next session is with Ian Rossol, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So have a break, get a cup of tea, and come back soon.
Thank you.